This episode of the Linux Action Show is brought to you by DigitalOcean and by Ting. Go to last.ting.com and save $25 off your first device or your first month of service. Welcome to the Linux Action Show, episode 326. My name is Chris.
My name is Matt.
Good morning to you, Matt.
Good morning.
Are you ready for me to tell folks about the huge show?
Big time.
Matt, as some might say, it's an ample show today.
I would say it is quite ample.
You might say that. Coming up on today's episode of the Linux Action Show, in the second half of the show, the Fedora Project Leader will be joining us to discuss Fedora Next, the Flock Conference, and what they're doing at LinuxCon, and I'll put his feet to the fire about where he sees Fedora's responsibility in terms of the overall Linux desktop and its future. And then the news segment, not only are we going to cover the regular news, but one of the developers from Arch Assault, who just got back from Blackhat, will join us to talk about the future of that distro and some of the fun things he saw at Blackhat, plus our picks, the feedback, and all of that stuff.
Nice.
Big show.
Big show.
So why don't we start with our picks, Matt? Are you ready?
I'm ready to rock and roll.
All right, our Runs Linux, all of our picks this week are audience submitted. We're doing an audience submitted special, and
Nice.
Derek wrote in with the European Space Agency Runs Linux. He says, "Hi, Chris and Matt. Love the show. I listen to Last often. Not sure if you've seen this, but I wanted to shoot you a quick Runs Linux submission. I was looking for a backup solution, and I ran into Bacula, which Bacula is great, by the way. And in the testimonials, I saw a reference that the mission control system software of the European Space Agency uses Bacula. Oh, I should mention that to Alan because he's a big Bacula fan.
Wow.
It looks like they're running SUSE Linux for their simulation software. Have a look for yourself, SUSE running GNOME, and he gave us the time code right here, Matt. So
that's handy.
Let's see if we can spot it. Are you ready? So here's the video. I will full screen this, and we'll hit play. So we're at, he says it's at 327, and we're at 321. So
Okay.
we'll jump in. This is a tour of the European Space Agency, and if we're sharp-eyed, we should see some GNOME and SUSE action.
The problems that no one found before. All of these teams are also thinking about
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's pause right here. Okay.
Got a launcher down there.
Hey, look at that. Look at that Yast icon right there on the desktop.
There
And
it is.
look, there's the home folder and the KDE trash icon that's totally SUSE
They are
Linux.
rocking KDE.
Look at that. It's like
I wonder if
it's weird though because down here it looks like a GTK taskbar down here.
Am I evil for wondering if they're like, let's say they have astronauts in space and then KDE's audio gives out? And
So,
they're like,
so wait a minute. It's the KDE. So they're using the Qt curve icons, but they're actually on the GNOME desktop because those are GTK window decorations, and they've got the
you're right.
GNOME menu bar up there and the GNOME taskbar down there.
That's true.
So it's KDE icons on the GNOME.
Wow.
Here, let's play a little more. See
that
if we
can
see more.
happen, and they're trying to come up with.
All right, so what do we see here? So it looks like we've got a couple of machines. So we've got a laptop. This laptop's running Windows. Look, you can see the start menu there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But this box here, that's Linux, and that's Linux. That's a KDE default background right there. I'm sorry, a SUSE default background right there. That's
the solutions
nice.
for them
That's
even
awesome.
before they happen. The wrong orbit.
There's a Windows box.
Yep.
Failures in thrusters.
And that's a Linux box.
Problems
Wow.
in the data handling. Temperatures that go out of limit. Any failure that makes them have to act, especially if they have to act in a hurry or if they have to decide on restrictions together with the whole team. This is the kind of thing we try to do. We try to go to areas where they didn't come up with a solution.
And there's the other Linux box on the big screen. So these machines simulate a lot of the European Space Agency's missions before they actually go out and, spend millions or billions of dollars in human life and
well,
all
like
that.
I said, make sure to back up your K-libs, and if Pulse Audio drops out on you guys and you're calling for help, I'm sorry.
Wow.
Yeah, I went there.
They say here that the spacecraft require constant oversight. And even before, so once they, this is interesting, Matt. Once they have a spaceship deployed, and this makes a ton of sense when you think about it, they use this Linux-based simulation system to try out the actions before they send the actual commands to the spaceship that's already traveling. So that way they've already kind of ran them through a success-fail scenario on these SUSE boxes before they send the commands to them.
That makes crazy sense, actually,
Yeah.
because, that way you know.
'Cause you only got one shot.
Right.
Right. Because, if you got a rover on Mars and you send it a command that it breaks down, you're not going to send a technician out there to fix it.
You're really not. No.
So you want to break it first in the simulation.
I don't care how good your enterprise support is. That's not going to happen.
Plus, once Skynet does come, and we've already discovered and honestly admitted that Skynet will be powered by Linux.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously. It will have space capabilities now.
Oh, good. That way we can't escape.
Problem solved, everybody. Problem solved. Anyways, thanks to Derek for sending that in.
That was really cool, though.
If
That
you'd
was a
like
great
to
video.
send a Runs Linux in, go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click the contact link, and send in your submission or linuxactionshow.reddit.com.
And props for mixing up the GNOME KDE action. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was. It was like, whoa,
Respect.
keeping us on our toes, man.
Yeah. It's kinda
Although
like,
the old spotter still got it down,
Yeah,
I gotta
yeah,
say.
yeah.
All right, speaking of the old spotter, let me tell you about some great value and an amazing company I've spotted, and that's DigitalOcean. Head over to DigitalOcean.com right now. What? DigitalOcean.com right now. What? DigitalOcean.com right now. Why? Because DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider. Cloud hosting, Matt. You ever heard about Cloud? Yeah, it comes after Cloud. Yeah, we're going to make it Cloud, and it's really cool. And if you want to get on cloud hosting, go over to DigitalOcean. They got legacy cloud support, too, if you want that. And they're dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to spin up a cloud or cloud server. Users could create a cloud server in 55 seconds, and pricing plans start at only $5 a month. Now, that's kind of amazing. $5 a month? I can't even get an effing burger for $5 a month, okay? Here's what you get
much
for
less a cloud.
Yeah, right. Here's what you get for $5. Like, less than a burger. 512 megabytes of RAM.
Ooh.
A 20 gigabyte SSD.
Sweet.
A CPU. And a terabyte of transfer connected to tier 1 bandwidth and amazing data centers all over the world.
Score.
All running on top of Linux for $5 a month that you get root access to. What I think is awesome about this is we've even seen people in the subreddit, I think what did we have, Matt? We had somebody that submitted a submission to the Linux Action Show subreddit this week. I think it was like 36 seconds.
Wow, 36 seconds.
You know what? It's like,
oh my God.
Oh, yeah, I could create a server in 55 seconds. That's not good enough. Let me go and
No.
create one in 36 seconds. And I'm all like, what? And that's what happened, Matt.
Good grief. I mean, the focus it would take to actually accomplish something like that is just incredible.
Well, what you do, Matt, is you get in the DigitalOcean droplet zone, and you're experiencing it from the inside.
It's like the Matrix.
Wow, look at this. It was actually
Oh
Robert
my
Downey
God.
Jr. Robert Downey Jr.
Well, that figures.
created a droplet called LinMail, and he was smart enough to blur out his IP there.
Which is good. That's
he
good.
deployed an Ubuntu 12.04 because he's a masochist, and he did it in
Wow.
36 seconds. Right?
That's fantastic.
And what's awesome
It's
is
the Sherlock Powers, man. I'm telling you.
that is kind of is, Matt. And what's awesome is DigitalOcean has data center locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, and London. Robert Downey was doing his in Singapore. London's a brand new one. You can go there. Let me tell you about their control panel. It's kind of mind-blowing. It's amazing. It's simple. It's intuitive. It's powerful. And like you can replicate it on your own with their straightforward API to do even more. And you're seeing the community do that now, which is always a really great sign. In fact, the Linux community has wholly embraced DigitalOcean. Why? Because they're based on Linux. They use amazing Linux technologies like Docker and Doku and obviously KVM. They're sitting on top of SSD drives, which is an amazing investment they've made early on. Their control panel is unbeatable. Nobody's got a better control panel than DigitalOcean, and the value is nuts. But it gets even better. When I mention value, get ready for this one. When you use the promo code SNAPAugust, that's one word. Not SnapAugust, that's TechSnap. Don't use that. Matt, what are you talking about?
No. No.
It's last August. Use the promo code last August, LAS August. Now, man, I feel like Leo Laporte up in here now. Use the promo code last August when you check out to get a $10 credit. Now, here's why I want you to use last August. It's all lowercase. And now, I'm not going to pass any judgments on you. But if you can't figure out the lowercase situation, stop using Linux. Just stop it. And go over to DigitalOcean and practice by typing in last August over and over and over again. And you'll get that $10 credit when you use the last August promo code. You can try out the $5 droplet for 2 months. They have pricing plans to go up even more powerful rigs, but the $5 rig has done plenty for me for months and months and months now. I can't believe how much I get for $5. And when you use the promo code last August, you'll get that $10 credit. You can try it for 2 months. Absolutely frizzles. 2 months.
The price is right. And the best part is it's a great opportunity to practice not hitting the caps locks. You know. Just saying.
Yeah. You know what? Give the caps lock a rest and use last August.
That's right.
Do us all a favor. Last August. And by the way, DigitalOcean rocks too. They have the ability to go submit your promo code app. So if you get all excited because you're like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? Build an own cloud. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? Build a BitTorrent sync, get my own GitLab, whatever I want, WordPress on my own machine that I control running any distribution I want to pick from. You get all excited by that. I understand. I did too. And you forget to use last August. DigitalOcean's got you covered. You can go back in there, retroactively apply it, and they'll because you can fill it up with the credits, right?
Yeah.
Super awesome. Not many companies do that. DigitalOcean does. Last August, when you check out, get that $10 credit, and a huge thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Linux Action Show.
Very cool. I like it.
And we have even more picks now, Matt. We have more picks sent in by the audience. Our next one came in from Darth Penguin, and it's his app pick suggestion, and this is perfect. It fits right in with our Arch Assault conversation we're about to have. He says, "Hey, Chris and Matt, I don't know if you've ever used this app in the pick segment, but I stumbled across it today and I thought it was very useful. It's called Lynis, 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 and it's an audit tool, not an adult tool, an audit tool for Linux systems. You can find out more about it at rootkit.nl/project/linus.html. I'll have a link to that in the show notes. And maybe you can use it in a future episode if you haven't already. Longtime watcher, he says he usually goes by Darth Penguin in the chat room. So we're going to talk to Arch Assault. I love the idea of just checking in on your system to see if it's secure.
Absolutely. Just remember my motto, if it executes code, hey,
you can probably exploit it.
That's right.
So when you run Lynis, you need to give it some parameters on the command line. You need to give it at least your name and what modules you want to run with. If you give it just your name, it runs all the modules. That's fine, except for you'll end up like me and you'll get a real bad score. So at the end of the Lynis's report, it pumps out not only a log file, which you can then go fine-tune, go through with like a fine-tooth comb, but they also just give you a straight-up hardening index where it says, Chris's laptop has a hardening index of 57 out of 100. That's,
ouch.
Yeah, not so good. 176 tests were performed in total. Heuristics checks were done. Vulnerability scans were done. HIPAA compliance was skipped. PCI compliance was skipped. SOX compliance was skipped for this audit, but you can enable those things.
Sure.
Kind of cool. Kind of cool because you can provide documentation to your local auditor if you've run these things. So do you want to run through it with me? Do you want to
try
let's
take a look and see how this works out.
It's a little. So I'm running it right here. It's so there's Lynis auditor Chris. Boy, I feel like I should be doing this in a cool old term actually. Hold on, Matt. Hold on, Matt. We gotta.
You got it right. I mean, you got to go there.
If we're gonna do this, let's do it right. Let's open up cool old term. We'll go full screen on cool old term here, and we'll do Lynis. And I think so when you run it just right here, it's like, hey, bro, you need to or gal. Hey, sis, you need to put in a username. So, unfortunately, I don't really care. So I'm just going to we'll put in an auditor. So you put an auditor, and I'll say Matt. So, Matt, you're our auditor today. And now you run through it, and it says, okay, well, this is program version 159, operating system Linux. Oh, good to know.
Fair enough.
Arch Linux at that. Whoa, look at this thing getting specific. There's my kernel because I haven't rebooted for a while to get 3.16.1. I'm still on 3.15.8. You're not on 3.15? Oh. What distribution are you running? And then you can see here's my auditor name, here's the configuration files it's going to pull, and then you hit enter, and it starts running through, and it goes through different sections. So here's my system tools. It's going to see what it can find, and it will run through this, and it takes about, 6-7 minutes. Kind of depends on how big your installation is.
Yeah.
And at the end, not only do you get a little snapshot of where it's at, but you also get that total vulnerability score report I gave, but you get a file-by-file level report as well in a text file.
In the text file, does it make suggestions of things that you can mess with?
No, but...
That would be cool.
But they do tie it in with an online reporting system, so you can kind of see how you score up, and then you can go online and kind of go from there.
Cool.
They have also some plugins available, so you can download and audit more things than you normally would out of the box. So there are some ways to sort of tailor it to your system once you discover things. You can disable certain things. Like, for example, I didn't need the Sarbanes-Oxley support. Jupiter Broadcasting is not governed by Sarbanes-Oxley or a HIPAA, so I didn't need to run those audits. But you could if you're in a field like that. And then for me, what I would use this as yes, client, I ran a report and I scanned specifically for HIPAA compliance, whatever it is, on your new server. Because one of the things is when you install a new server, and specifically like a Linux box or something like that, in healthcare and in finance or anything that's maybe handling credit card processing, you have to prove that you checked it, that it conforms with the industry standards. You have to prove that you checked that. And here's the dirty part about the industry. It doesn't actually have to be accurate. It should be for your own for your customers' good and your own good. It should be accurate. But as far as auditors go and legality, if you've done a legitimate audit and you've had that signed off by a HIPAA compliance auditor, you are actually not in the under.
That is
even if it's not accurate, you are actually in the clear. Let's go figure, right?
It's good to know, especially if you're wearing your doctor's coat.
So it will also go through the package manager. It detects what distribution you're on. It'll query all the installed packages. It will check for versions and things like that. So it's, I mean, this is a pretty nice tool. And and here's another cool thing. It will go through and check your name servers and see if you have any bogus name servers. You can see my third name server is not giving a response, but it still passes because a minimum of 2 name servers passed. It checks my default gateway, checks my listening ports. It found 25 ports that are currently open because, well, I'm promiscuous like that. It checks my DHCP client status and sees that it's currently not active. It checks my cups daemon, which it says he's not running. Checks to see if I have any open mail servers right here. That's what we're doing on this stage, right?
Yep.
Because sometimes you install a distro and it starts up a mail relay server for you, so that way you can send out reports. You can see here that I have a firewall, but it's not currently active. It found these kernel modules, right? Isn't that interesting?
That's actually, and these are things, modules, ports, applications,
SSH
services.
config here.
Yes.
So you can see here, no flaws in my SSH config, which is just kind of a nice peace of mind. It checks if I had MySQL, Postgres, or Oracle, it would be checking those. If I had LDAP or PHP, it would be checking those. I don't have those on my Bonobes, so it doesn't need to warn me about those. You can see here that it's checking my syslog status. It sees here that I have a log here, but it's also because Linux, it's looking for all of the old things like rsyslog, syslog-ng.
Right.
You know, it's
never know.
Yeah, and it checks for inetd. It hasn't obviously been very updated for systemd much yet, but that's okay. You can see here if I'm running NTP. See, I'm running NTP. You can see I'm not running these things. I like this too from a sanity check from it, because one of the things is this is an installation that I just haven't used in I've had for a long time, so I've kind of forgotten what I've built. So it's kind of nice. This goes back and reminds me all of the crap that I've installed.
Yep.
And did I do anything crazy over the year that I've been just installing random ass stuff on this machine? And so here we go. Here's the final report. We're all done now. So I have a hardening index of 57. 176 tests were performed. These modules were either used or skipped. The files that were tested and where I can go read the report data to get more stuff. And this would be where I would go get the very specific details of the report. File by file level stuff right here.
That would be helpful.
This is just a way to run this either on your server or your own desktop and do a sanity check. And it's not going to change anything. It's just going to tell you, hey, you know what? Your SSH config is allowing root login. Maybe that's not a good idea.
And it's doing it from a port you didn't assign, and little things like that. They're kind of weird. So you might not normally see it in regular day-to-day stuff.
So there you go. Lynis, Lynis, and you can find it at rootkit.nl. There you go. It's an open source auditing software. And very handy. Speaking, while we're on the same security track, I want to talk about DEFT. We haven't spotlighted DEFT before, and I thought it was time to give it a mention. So DEFT, if you're not familiar, it's a very purpose-driven distribution. It's focused on digital evidence and forensics. It's customized based on Ubuntu. It's easy to use. It includes excellent hardware detection and some of the best open-source applications to detect incidents and analyze them from a forensic standpoint. So you can do forensics imaging of a hard drive and then analyze the data. They just had an update a couple of days ago. 8.2 is ready for download. It's a cool project, and it's another one like it goes along with some of these Arch Assault or Kali Linux type distributions or auditing distributions. This is a great one to keep around if you're in a work environment or something like that where potentially somebody leaves and it's not on good terms, and you want to discover if they've contacted potential clients or sales opportunities and said, hey, I'm leaving, go follow me here. If you want to even anything from that to serious legal issues that you need to do some forensic level investigations, DEFT, which you can find at DEFTlinux.net, is the tool that lets you do that. This tool is used today in courtrooms. This is already an accepted legal tool that I have heard from folks that use DEFT in court cases. So if you're in a position where your employer or your whatever it is, or just for yourself, you need to get forensics level details of a hard drive, of activities, of a hack breach, of any kind of security incident, this tool, DEFT, DEFTlinux.net, will give you the tool set, and it's already been accepted by the legal community as a valid tool to do this stuff. So it's a win on 2 points because it actually has validity to it if you bring it into a court case, and you also know that it has an incredible set of tools. So
very cool. Very nice.
And the name stands for Digital Evidence and Forensics Toolkit, DEFT.
Easy to remember, easy to say, easy to use.
DEFTlinux.net, and congratulations to the project on the new 8.2 release.
Yeah.
It looks like a good one. All right, Matt, there you go. You got your picks, you got all that stuff. So you can find links to anything that we just talked about in the show notes, and you can also submit stuff to the show by emailing linuxactionshow@jupiterbroadcasting.com or submitting it to the subreddit over at linuxactionshow.reddit.com. We always appreciate it there as well. All right, Matt, let's do the news.
Hey, it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com. Matt, go over to last.ting.com right the heck now, last.ting.com. That'll save you $25 off your Ting device, and you're going to want to remember last.ting.com because after I get done telling you about them, you're going to want a device. Last.ting.com will also get you a $25 credit if you've already got a Ting-compatible device. So, what is Ting? Ting is my mobile service provider and Matt's mobile my mobile service provider. Nice, yes. You know, I like that leather case, Matt. You've kept that in great condition, too.
And it works nicely. You can kind of fold it back.
And it works as a little bit of an extra buffer when you put it down on the table. So Ting is mobile that makes sense. And that's probably the easiest way to explain it. It is no contract, no early termination fee, and you only pay for what you use. Plus, it's just a flat $6 for the line. Now, I was thinking about as a live production here at Jupiter Broadcasting, all of our shows are live. We record them for release, and that's where the bulk of you listen to them. But we produce them for the live audience, and that also keeps us on a time schedule. To do that, with all of the people that we work with literally all over the world, communication is so critical. And what I've been able to accomplish because of the way the Ting structures their value system, the way you pay for only what you use, your minutes, your megabytes, your messages, the way you just pay for them individually for what you use, has allowed us to give critical members of our team devices. And as a small business, if I was doing these through the traditional methods of the telco industry, this would be a huge cost center for the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. But because my crew is tech savvy, and because I'm tech savvy, and we know what Wi-Fi is, and we know how to make calls over Wi-Fi using things like Viber and Hangouts, we are able to have a level of real-time collaboration that makes these live type of shows possible, literally makes them possible at an expense level that was never before possible before a company like Ting came along. And what's great for me is somebody who doesn't have a lot of time, somebody who doesn't necessarily want to have to call technical support, I can rely on their awesome dashboard that lets me activate devices, deactivate devices, transfer the note to Matt, things like that are so straightforward that typically would require enough of my time that I would just never get around to it. That's a personality trait of mine that is not one of my better aspects. If it takes too much time, I generally don't get around to it. But Ting has lowered that barrier of resistance so that way I can get it done. And I dramatically appreciate that. Plus, if I ever got stuck, they have no-hold customer service at 1-855-TING-FTW. And a real person answers the phone anytime between 8 a.m. or 8 p.m., business hours. You get a real person who's ready to resolve your problem. The other thing I like about Ting, as somebody who's technically aware, savvy, I follow the industry, and I also appreciate that my dollar really does vote for the type of market that I want. When I spend something on a monthly basis, that money is going towards a statement. It's an uncomfortable reality. It is the reality, though, and we all have to acknowledge that. And I get comfort in the fact that my money goes to Ting. And one of the ways that as a longtime customer I know I can appreciate Ting is the transparency that they provide as a company from all kinds of great things on their blog site. Like if you go over to blog.ting.com, check out their blog, or just go to last.ting.com so that way they know we sent you, and then click on the blog link. You can read about their thoughts on the Sprint and T-Mobile acquisition. I think that's incredible. I think that level of transparency, to see that kind of detail from people who know, who people are in a position of authority at the company, is incredible. But the other thing that I really respect is they are genuine mobile enthusiasts themselves. They're crazy passionate about this. This is why they're all about paying for only what you use. Go to last.ting.com and check out some of their great posts, like this great one right here. Kyra's here, Matt, with an app pick.
Looking for a great community that loves reading and writing as much as you do? I'm Kyra, and this is Ting's App of the Week.
Okay.
Wattpad is an unlimited library of downloadable ebooks and stories. Read awesome contributions in a wide variety of categories like fantasy, romance, and sci-fi. From well-known authors to budding writers, there's always something to catch your interest. After logging into Wattpad, tell the app what kinds of stories you like, such as teen, mystery, or fan fiction. Wattpad will then suggest several popular stories for you based on your selections.
Nice.
The Discover tab is where you can browse for new stories, find recommendations, sort by category, and more. Want to submit your own story to Wattpad? Tap Create to get started. You can also create reading lists and follow writers through your newsfeed. Grab the app for free on Google Play and the App Store. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe to Ting for more app reviews.
And you see that video recommendation right there. What's wrong with the U.S. mobile industry?
Nice
That's on Ting's page. And Ting has put out a great video about that if you'd like to check it out. Ting's also on Twitter, TingFTW. You can follow them there. They have giveaways and contests. Go to last.ting.com. Get started. Try out their savings calculator. I've saved over $2,000.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's a laptop. And actually, for us, that's how we'll be affording a nanny, is because of the money we're saving by Ting. And that's like legitimately amazing because it means we can dedicate more of our time to Jupiter Broadcasting. And it's because we made that change. So I really want you to go to last.ting.com and check them out. And a huge thank you to Ting for sponsoring the Linux Action Show.
Nice.
Okay, Matt, brace yourself.
Oh, God.
We're going to start the news with a bit of bad news. The folks at Solid XK, one of your go-to distributions.
Yeah.
We've interviewed the developers on Linux Unplugged. We've reviewed the distribution as well. And they're making some changes. They're scaling back a bit, I guess would probably be a fair way to put it.
Okay.
Now, don't get too upset, but
Well, I anytime I see the future of anything, that always has me concerned because I haven't read this yet. I just saw the title. I'm like, no.
Right.
No,
So if you're not familiar, Solid XK is a great distribution based on Debian, but trying to introduce something between rolling, where you get some level of rolling, but then also like these update packs. And it was a kind of nice compromise that sort of would ease you into the rolling release model. And I think for some people that were like, oh, I can't have a system that has any package update all the time, these update packs are like, okay, well, this quarter you're going to get a big old update.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, I liked it for myself
up.
Because on my Arch box, or my Arch base box rather, I was able to, do my daily routine, and I continue to. That's great. I love it there. But I had another box that I used primarily for Steam and other things that I really just wanted everybody to just leave it the hell alone. I didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to.
This is my Skype box. I need to make meeting calls. I need this to work.
I don't need mystery package theater every day. I don't need this crap.
Did you just make that up?
Yeah.
That's good, man.
It's true. It's like, ooh, hey, look, your ex-curse.
Mystery package. Somebody suggest that. Mystery package theater. That's good.
Well, it's just so, for that particular purpose, it was great. And, I still use Arch in the other box and everything's great. But yeah, the future of it, I don't know.
Well, okay, so here's what's happening. And, and tell me how this sits with you. So when Debian's current testing release, Jesse, becomes stable, which it's Debian, so who knows?
Yeah.
The home editions and business editions will merge and become the new main editions. Now, they put an S on there to make it plural. I think they meant to drop an S off. I think it's just going to become one edition. I think the home and business become solid, essentially, one edition.
Okay.
They'll be based on Debian stable. Then they will provide businesses and organizations a subset of up-to-date software. Additionally, home users, I guess this would maybe be you. I don't know.
Yeah, I use the home package.
How do you do this differentiation seems ridiculous.
It does.
At all. Like, I mean, from what I understand, it's like I think one is like updated more frequently or whatever. I don't remember. I just was like, hey, I like the word home. That works. So, are we all collectively agreeing that some users deserve less stable software than other users?
I think it's a little more bleeding edge. No, I would
see. This is something I've never really got, and I think it's something Microsoft has always really screwed up with all their editions. And I know people hate it when I do this, but
no, they love it. What are you talking about?
Well, no, I mean, you look at what Apple's done the last couple of years with Mac OS X. They dropped the price way down, and now it's one version. And if you want the server version, they're not bullshitting you anymore. It's like, you know what? Yeah, we know it's the same kernel, it's the same code, it's just some extra tools. So you just buy it for like $10 from the App Store, or $20 or $100 or whatever it is. And then we'll just download those tools and the same exact frickin' kernel with all the same capabilities, with no artificial limitations, now has this software suite. And that's exactly how Linux should do it. Here's Linux. You can have a core set of Linux distributions, and this distribution has a core set of tools, and then you pick. Like we're about to talk to the Fedora project lead, and he's going to talk about Fedora Workstation and Fedora Cloud and Fedora Server, and you could have Fedora Watch, you could have Fedora glasses, right? You could have all these, and so you would start with a base Fedora, and then you say, I'm going to take on this role, and I now will subscribe to those set of packages. Having different home versions and server versions and enterprise versions, and it seems silly. It seems like when somebody wants to play operating system, this is sort of the artificial construct that they come up with. But in reality, what you are really saying, if you are to buy off on this scheme, is that home users don't deserve stable software. Enterprise users are so risk adverse; they only want stable software.
I would agree,
and it's a gray. It is not black and white like that.
I think I agree with the latter in that they don't want the most bleeding edge software. But I think first of all, they're talking to people that literally process information that way because they're using words like synergy. So this is right up their alley. Okay, I mean that's your first thing. So they may realize it's nonsense, but for them, this is what people want to read. This is what they want to take in. That's why they're using it. For me,
fair point.
I'm just like, well, I'm using that in my home. That works.
Yeah,
I didn't care.
So you're almost saying it's audience expectations.
Yeah, a lot of it.
Okay, that's a good point.
And for myself personally, I honestly went back and forth between them. I looked at the list. I was like, I basically rolled dice and said, I'm going to use home. Works for me. Don't care.
I think I would too. So so once Debian stable comes out and they combine business and home into one thing, they will offer home users the option to subscribe to essentially a rolling release, if you will.
Okay.
Now this comes with a huge caveat. It's not going to be an officially supported release, but they'll do like snapshot ISOs, so the business folks will be able to get those at regular intervals.
Okay.
And home users, if they want, you can go get the business edition where you get the snapshots and the regular ISO intervals and the updates, or if you're a home user, you can pull the trigger and you can go with their new rolling edition. Now, they couch the rolling edition a lot in this blog post. In this small blog post, they managed to they essentially discourage the rolling version twice. But I think that is essentially for enthusiasts what they're kind of moving to.
It is. Because I think what they're trying to do, and this is what it sounds like to me, is they're trying to attract more, well, I hate to say it, but enterprise people are the folks with the money. So, no offense there to the home users, but I think that's really what they're trying to do. And they're trying to be taken more seriously in that space. And I think the home user is becoming kind of a secondary thing for them.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And most people, just like most people shouldn't have driver's licenses, I don't think most people should use rolling releases. That doesn't mean they're bad. It just means these people aren't
and like
up
Josh,
here enough to use it.
Like Josh is pointing out right now in our IRC chat room is essentially rolling solid. What rolling solid is going to be is the Debian testing, whatever the latest development edge of Debian is, that's gone through maybe one more wash cycle through solid before it lands on your hard drive.
Right.
But what's the point there?
There really isn't. I mean, at that point, it's like, but see, then you have someone like me who's too lazy to switch again because it's just like, oh, for Christ's sake, I just dropped it on here. As long as it doesn't break, it's not a box I use daily, so I don't really care.
That's true. And I suppose, too, like, you down the road, like if I was somebody at work using Solid for my work machine and I trusted Solid, I thought they had I liked that distribution, I liked what the group was doing, and I wanted to run the same thing at home, but I wanted to have a little more fun at home,
right?
Maybe I would go rolling. So I guess if I'm looking at it like you're saying, from a business-first perspective, it's we want people to think of Solid XK as a business desktop that has this ability for the enthusiasts to go home and use the same desktop with newer stuff at home.
It feels a little bit like what Simply Mepis tried to do and didn't do very well. That's what feels like what's happening now, and I think they're making a mistake. I think they need to just blank or get off the pot. Basically, at this point, I think they really need to examine: are you going to be for home users or enterprise users? Because what you guys are doing now is incredibly confusing and convoluted.
Yeah, and I think too, like it's a have at it, Haas. I mean, that would be really great to break that down. The thing is now you're going up against SUSE Enterprise Linux. Yeah, you're going up against Ubuntu long-term support, which is. I mean, hello. Yeah. And then you're going up against Mint, too, really. In that category.
If it was me, here's how the direction I would take it. If you really want to get into the enterprise space, and that's great, okay, fine. Get into specific niches, depending on how you pronounce it. So, like, you have you have a POS setup. You have a things that do different stuff that I can just download an ISO, plug it in, and it does blank.
This is this is a spin for point of sale machines. I like that.
Medical stuff. There's veterinary applications for on Linux, things like that a person can then just plug into it. At least then there's a differentiating factor as to why I would use you guys over someone who's got billions of dollars.
This is the thing, because you are now you're competing against businesses and organizations that are literally built around serving the enterprise, and it's kind of their bag, and they kind of have like all of the business contacts, especially when you're talking SLES, right? I mean, when you're talking SUSE Linux Enterprise, that's crazy. Like they've got decades of entrenched relationships established there. And I also wonder too, like, are we seeing perhaps we've seen over the last couple of years an explosion in new derivative-based distros, and now are we maybe seeing a pop in that bubble, if you will, and maybe sort of coming back to reality of what these distros, these derivatives can actually sustain, what a small team can actually do. Is that what we're seeing a little bit here too?
I think so. I think the problem is a lot of people that develop distributions do so because they think it's something that would be useful. They think it's something that would be cool, but it doesn't actually. And then when they do a reversal of direction, something like this, they don't really stop to think, why is someone going to use my distro over something else? Because at this point, what they're doing, I would just use Debian at this point. I don't know what the advantage is anymore. There's no extra layer of anything. It just, it kind of loses its value. So I think these are things they really got to think about. It's like, if they really want to go the enterprise direction, that's fine, but get specific, fellas. I mean, come on. That'd be my advice to you.
Yeah, and I mean, best of luck. I mean, a lot of people out there love the distro. I was surprised. A lot of people are pretty upset, but even though this is a major change, there's a lot of time. I mean, you've got till Jessie is stable and released, so
you got like till 2050.
I mean, you probably at least got till December 2015.
So you're good. You're good.
But kidding aside, you've got time, and you have time to evaluate other distros. You have time to engage with the Solid XK community. Yeah. So if you're a Solid XK user, this is not a time to freak out.
No. Just the title had me spooked. At this point, I know I'm not going anywhere. I think the fact of the matter is that, they're going to have to, kind of decide long-term what they want to do with it. But for me, for now, it does what I need it to do, and that's great.
Yeah.
Whatever. You know?
Amen to that, Matt. All right, let's so kind of talking about another end of the spectrum. The folks over at Elementary OS have released Freya Beta 1. It's available for download right now. Now, this is not a review. Right. That's why we're doing it right here in the news. But I just wanted to spread the word because I think this is a pretty interesting distribution. They definitely are charting their own course, and I kind of respect that in its own way. And I just want to give you guys a little info about it. So, by the way, they recommend you don't use this in production.
And I would agree with that.
Yeah,
I would.
It's based on Ubuntu 14.04.1 LTS. It has kernel version 3.13. Okay. They've got a lot of support for UEFI if you got one of them new rigs. They're based on GTK 3.12, so it's not stuck on the old busted 310 and 1404. Cool. Yeah, which means you're going to get client-side decorations, and they've done some work to make that work really well. They have also got the new Pantheon online accounts you can tie in, and it supports plugins, so maybe we'll see an OwnCloud plugin right now. There isn't one at the moment. And they've also obviously fixed a few hundred other things, and they're continuing to work on a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff. So I've installed the beta. Right? Oh, actually, this is the live beta. And one of the things Elementary OS does with their betas is this blueprints background.
Yeah, it feels very
you're under construction.
Yeah, and that's good. You know, might even throw that banner up.
Yeah, you could say under construction. So it ships with Midori, which we had a good look at this on Linux Unplugged from this week. We had one of our in-studio guests, Fate, was actually rocking Elementary OS during the show, and he was showing it off while we were talking. But for those of you that haven't seen that yet, here's the file manager. And one of the things you might notice when it goes full screen, that black title bar, it goes from transparent to black, and then if I unmaximize, it fades back. Isn't that nice?
I like that. That's a nice decoration. I like the integration they do. That's
and
cool.
If you call this brushed metal, they will come to your house and murder you. So do not call this brushed metal. It is silver.
I mean, well, no, obviously it's lacquered aluminum foil. I mean, come on. Come on. I mean, there's not. I mean, it's just obvious. I mean,
but it's a great Linux distro, and if you're looking for something polished, something real nice, something that I think would give people that what you got there
exactly. It's the new Compiz.
Yeah, it is, and also they are rocking support for Chromebooks. So if you got folks that have a Chromebook and they're like, yeah, this doesn't do enough for me, there is a step-by-step guide for getting the new beta on Chromebooks. I think this is genius.
Well, there's a very simple way to get someone off of Google when they're using a Chromebook. Say, okay, I'm going to help you out with some stuff. Go ahead and install Skype. Oh, that's right. You can't.
No.
So, you'll want to install Elementary so you can get Skype, and that usually takes care of it.
Yeah. And the fact that I think it's been mostly on Linux Unplugged, but a lot of these Chromebooks essentially work out to be future Linux boxes that are crazy really cheap, right? Yeah. So making it easy to install your OS on a Chromebook, in my opinion, is absolute genius because not only is it a low investment to test out a beta, but it is going to be, there's a ton of machines that are going to be out there that are going to be sitting around because the next version, the next iteration of the Chromebooks is just around the corner, and people are going to have these Chromebooks sitting around. You could put Elementary OS on that, boom, Bob's your uncle.
This is true because they're going to end up being doorstops in a year anyway, so you might as well put them to work.
Yeah. Red Hat's been busy on Project Atomic. We've had an interview with some of the folks working on Project Atomic before. And if you're not familiar, in April, Red Hat released Project Atomic. It's a prototype system for running Docker containers. It's Red Hat's response to, essentially, Core OS. It's a system for hosting Docker containers and deploying them out amongst your servers. Project Atomic is not intended to be another operating system. The core of Project Atomic is the package installation system, RPM OS tree, which takes the packages from Fedora, or another distro, but right now it's based on Fedora for Project Atomic. We'll talk more about that with our interview here coming up. And it acts as essentially a Git for operating system binaries, allowing different collections of packages or operating installs, and then it can switch atomically between them. So I know what you're thinking. What? Like, think about like a box that's dedicated to virtualization, and then now it's dedicated to being a web server.
Right.
Now it's dedicated to being a database server, right? You can switch between them almost like gears. Like Core OS, Systemd is also the core of Project Atomic. It runs the processes. It handles the distributed applications. Project Atomic also uses GearD, which is another project from Red Hat. And GearD is the basis of the next generation OpenShift, which is integrated also with Systemd.
Nice.
A lot of Systemd here. Also included is a browser-based graphical management tool called Cockpit that you can deploy the Docker images from. It manages both Project Atomic hosts and the running containers, and you can also manage the resources for those containers, so you can say this container gets more CPU than this container.
Right.
Maybe you got a mail server that's going crazy and you want to dial that down so that way your web server is more responsive. It's all beta, but Project Atomic is getting close and ready to go. So when we talk with our guest here in a little bit, and we mention Project Atomic, you'll know a little bit of what that's about.
Almost feels like System D is like the clutch to your car. Oh, don't grind those gears.
Matt, some big stuff for Linux gamers could potentially be in the works. OpenGL 4.5 has been released, and it's got some of Direct3D's best stuff. The newest version of the industry standard 3D programming API is out. The new version contains a mix of features designed to make developer lives easier and improve performance and reliability of OpenGL applications. The group also issued a call for participation in its next-generation OpenGL initiative amid growing interest in low-level APIs, such as AMD's Mantle, which we've talked about, and the new DirectX 12, which also has a lot lower level, and Apple's Metal for iOS 8. The big feature in OpenGL 4.5 is Direct State Access, or colloquially called DSA. So remember DSA, folks. That stands for Direct State Access. OpenGL, as we all have learned, is a complex API that relies extensively on implicit state maintained between function calls. And you're like, Chris, what does that mean? Because I'm like, I didn't know either. But ours broke it down for us. They say, for example, it relies, get ready for this, Matt. Think about how tedious this is for a developer, okay?
Okay.
To specify the properties of a texture, first a texture unit must be set as active. So you flag it as active.
Right.
Then that texture must be bound to another currently active texture unit. So you say, okay, now bound to this. All right, sure. Then the properties of the currently bound texture are then specified. In each case, the link between the calls is implicit. The binding of the texture implicitly uses the active texture unit, and the property setting implicitly uses the bound texture. Sort of like the circle jerk that takes a ton of time from developers. The style is awkward, putting it nicely, especially for developers who are writing their own third-party middleware libraries.
Oh, God,
because if the middleware wants a change of a texture property, it has to do the activation and binding dance described, but then it has to undo the binding activation because the application using the middleware may have already set its own bindings on that same texture. So Direct State allows developers to both set and query the properties on an object without having to make units active or bind objects to them. Now, what's crazy is DSA has been available as an extension to OpenGL for a while, but the thing is, if it's an extension, you don't know if it's going to be on a system for sure, so then as a developer, you can't rely on it, so nobody's using it, or not enough people are using it. Now DSA will be included, so that should be a huge boost for people that are looking for a little bit of more simplicity with the OpenGL API.
A little catch-22 prevention.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you know, Matt, we like to talk about security and testing. We've talked about some auditing tools. Well, one thing we haven't spent a lot of time on is Arch Assault. Now, producer Q5Sys, Matt, you know, he's a sharp cookie, and he said, it's the summertime. There's a few things we could check in on as the news slows down a little bit, and we've talked a lot about security testing distributions, like penetration distributions, things like that. You and I are both big Arch fans, and one thing that we haven't talked a lot about is Arch Assault. So to go into Arch Assault a little bit and talk about DEF CON and his trip and what's coming up for the project is Tyler Bennett, one of the developers for Arch Assault. Tyler, welcome to the Linux Action Show.
Thank you very much.
So Tyler, what do you do with the what do you do with Arch Assault?
Well, we basically take all the latest pen testing tools that you would need and build them into a repo that you can basically attach to your Arch Linux install.
Okay, but why Arch? Because, I mean, I've seen other, like Kali Linux and other ones that are maybe based off Debian or Ubuntu, so I'm an Arch fan. I think I know why, but maybe for the audience, why would I want a penetration testing distribution based off Arch Linux?
2 words. Roll and release.
Yeah, really, because, I mean, you say that, but really in this field, having the most current tools is maybe more critical than any other field, right?
Yes. I mean, we can do the development lifecycle. We can push out the latest and greatest security tools as they come out within a few hours of them being released.
Yes, right. And I can tell you from experience, like, there are products out there for the penetration market that literally make their entire money off selling you very current updates. I'm thinking of like the Nessus scanner and their enterprise plugin package that you can subscribe to and get access to certain vulnerabilities before the open source version gets them. And people pay like thousands of dollars to have current stuff. So are you a penetration tester? Is that why you started Arch Assault? Or what's the story there? How did Arch Assault get its start?
Well, we started out our project because we wanted to build a pen testing platform on Arch Linux. Nobody really had done it before. And we love Arch, and we love Pac-Man, so we just started building packages and gathering tools we needed and put it all together. We utilize the whole Arch ecosystem, so we have a fork of their website, we have a fork of their wiki. Well, we're working on that. That's down the road a little bit. We fork with their bug tracker, basically their whole setup. We utilize all their environment to maintain our stuff. It allows us easier to just be a unofficial repo on top of their box.
Right, and also probably makes the project more sustainable over the long term, really, which seems smart. So you just spent some time at DEF CON. How did that go? What was DEF CON like, and did Arch Assault get some attention?
We got a little bit of attention. I talked to some developers out there and tried to get them to join in to contribute to the project a little bit. And we did some talks and everything, saw some people, hung out. We possibly might be going into Katana.
Oh,
wow.
So I know the developer for Katana, so we might be possibly getting added on there.
So it sounds like Blackhat was a pretty big hit, Tyler, but there's been some things happening with Arch Assault itself. I noticed on the 12th you've added a bunch of new tools to Arch Assault. So what's new with the project, and where's Arch Assault going?
Well, we are building more and more tools as they come out. We're trying to get in touch with more developers to gather more tools to upgrade the repo. We have a new wiki coming out soon that's going to include some of our drone-based software and flight videos of flights, because we do support x86, i686, and ARMv6 and ARMv7 as well. Yeah, that's.
I think the ARM stuff is a great move. I think the idea of an appliance like that, something sort of Raspberry Pi-esque or whatever of that ilk that could sit on your network and do some scanning like that. So the one thing that comes to my mind when I think about Arch Assault is long-term viability. What are your plans to make sure that professionals that are basing maybe their practice off of tools like Arch Assault will be able to rely on the project, say, not just for the rest of 2014, but maybe 2020, 2025. Are there things that you're working on now to sort of put an infrastructure in place to sustain the distribution on the long haul? Because it is for folks that are probably doing a very specific line of work.
Sure. Yeah, well, and we have a lot of people already utilizing it in the pen testing field directly. We basically support all the tools we build. And as we have to pull down patches and fix things to provide long-term support for certain things, as Arch brings tools in that we have in our repo, we kick them out of ours and put them in, keep them in.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You guys are that sounds extremely practical.
We have auto builders, so as soon as I push a package to the repo, it gets built by our auto builder and synced to the real repo.
Okay. Yeah. I look at where you guys are going, and I wonder too, if you get to a certain size, are you worried about excuse me, Mr. Bennett, we would like to talk to you about the distribution that you produce and its capabilities as a cyber warfare tool. Are you worried about that kind of thing at all?
Not yet, because it hasn't come up.
Yeah.
If it comes up,
has it crossed your mind though? I mean, to be honest, you're working on something like this. Has that crossed your mind?
Yes, but we're not doing anything illegal. I mean, everything we're doing is the tool set.
Yeah.
What they do with it is their business.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Break something up, that's not my fault.
Yeah. I'm glad. I worry, and I'm really glad to hear that response, because I worry about, in a post-known world, I worry about folks like you who are making tools like this getting cold feet. Because there is potential, right, for somebody to come knocking on your door. Nothing could ever happen. You may never get contacted. You never know. But there's also potential that you might one day end up on a watch list. Do you ever worry about that?
Oh, I'm sure we're already on plenty of watch lists.
You went to DEF CON. You went to Blackhat, man. You're
already there.
Yeah, you're on a list. Well, Tyler, is there anything else just kind of going on with Arch Assault, or anything you want to let folks know about the project in general? I like your shirt. Where can I get a shirt like that?
Yeah, that's awesome.
I wish I was selling them at the moment, but I'm not.
Oh, he's got. Folks probably can't see because it's cut off just a little bit by the camera, but he's got an awesome Arch Assault shirt, which it's got a little crosshairs on the Arch logo.
Oh,
yeah, that's great.
There it is. That is fantastic.
That is a great shirt, man. I want to buy one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll thought about setting up a Teespring if people would buy it.
There you go.
Yeah, I would recommend it. I think people will be all over it.
So are you looking for contributors? Where is the project at right now? Would you like some folks in the audience to maybe reach out and help a little bit?
Well, we have our public GitHub as well as GitHub Arch Assault project.
Okay.
We have a website, archassault.org.
Also a Twitter account, which may be a good way to follow news and stuff like that.
Yep. We don't really spam too much Twitter. We only do really bring new updates, new tools, every new ISO. That's pretty much all we do.
So it is Arch Assault on Twitter, and that's probably a good way, especially as you're going to conferences and whatnot too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dig. All right, Tyler. Well, thanks so much for coming on Linux Action Show and just kind of giving us a little insight on Arch Assault, where you guys are going, and keep up the great work. Let's keep in touch and chat in the future, okay?
We will. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, Matt. Well, that wraps up the news for this week. That's all the news. We're about to talk with Matthew Miller, the Fedora project leader, about Fedora Next, the Flock conference, and what he'll be doing at LinuxCon, and the future of the Linux desktop and the role that Fedora plays in that, too.
Very nice.
But first, I want to thank our segment sponsor, System76. Go over right now. Stop. Whatever you're doing, System76.com. System76.com. Go there. Why? Because they create machines designed for Linux. One of the things that makes me so frustrated is when I'm setting up for this show in the mornings. It happens all the time. I see people in the chat room that stop in there and they're troubleshooting their stupid laptop problems.
Yep.
And I think to myself, is your life... Do you consider your life so invaluable that it's not worth going out and getting a machine meant to run Linux? Is your time worth so little? And these machines are excellent machines like this Ultra Pro, and you can save up to $100 right now with some of their back... Oh, $100? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say $100?
$100?
The most extreme savings right now actually is on my Bonobo Extreme. You can go over to System76.com, and you can possibly save up to $400 on the Bonobo Extreme. If you've been thinking about getting a Bonobo Extreme and you want to save some money on a SATA solid-state drive, you want to get the GTX 880 with 8 gigabytes of virtual memory and the Core i7-4810MQ, yeah, they've got discounts on all of that stuff, plus $50 off just the base price right now of the Bonobo Extreme. And this machine, hold on, you guys, I have never had a machine that has lasted me longer.
Right.
Never had a computer that has lasted me longer than the Bonobo, and there's a few reasons. Number one, the performance. I've got dual SSDs, Core i7, 16 gigabytes of RAM, a great NVIDIA card, HDMI out, tons of USB 3. It's rocking from that standpoint. Great sound system, subwoofer built in, so it is, it satiates me in a lot of ways. But on top of that, the hands down, excellent, trouble-free Linux experience that I have, not just on like my Arch install and my Ubuntu install, but on every frickin' distribution that I demo and review on this show. Every single one of them works perfectly on my Bonobo. Now, how the hell do you put that as a feature on the side of a box? You can't put that as a check mark on the side of a box. It's just what happens after you've been using an awesome system from System76. They've got a ton of great machines. They've got desktops as well built right here in the US of A. Never been a better time because of their back-to-school special, System76.com. And tell them the Linux Action Show sent you.
That's right.
All right, Matt, why don't we jump in with our chat with Matthew Miller. Now, Matthew, if my memory serves, you're a fairly recent new addition to the higher echelons of the Fedora project as the Fedora project leader as of, I'm pulling this out of my hat, but I think it's June, right?
It's gone so kind of in a blur. I think that's right.
Well, I think you must be then the perfect person to talk to because I have so many questions about Fedora Next, but specifically, I feel like we've seen a lot of discussions in the headlines in the news recently about Fedora because Flock has been going on, and you're kind of in transit right now between Flock and LinuxCon, right?
Exactly, yeah. I spent 2 weeks in the Czech Republic, both at Flock and in Brno, which is where Red Hat has some engineering headquarters there. And now I'm actually at my in-laws' house. You can see in the background here, lovely high school pictures of my wife and her brother.
I like that. That's the home connection. So
Exactly.
Could you, for those of us who maybe don't know, what is Flock?
So Flock is Fedora's premier conference for developers of Fedora itself.
Okay.
And it's a new thing that the former Fedora project leader, Robin Bergeron, started last year. And we've had conferences for Fedora for a long time, since near the beginning. And the previous conference was something called FudCon, which is Fedora User and Developers Conference, and also a really nerdy and hard to explain pun about being contra FUD and something or other like that.
Yeah.
And those conferences had kind of evolved into being an unconference format over the years, which was fairly successful, but wasn't really doing what we needed for a conference for planning the next generation of Flock. So kind of a lot of people showed up, and they worked pretty well, especially from a user point of view, but from a development and strategic planning and thinking about in the future kind of way, it wasn't working so well. So because most of our actual developers are in Europe and North America, we decided to combine the FUDCons for those parts of the world into this more expensive, more planned conference, and do that alternating between Europe and North America. And we still do the FUDCons in Latin America and Asia as well.
Okay, so that's why I still see references to them from time to time. So that's Flock. And it sounds like, from what I've gathered, just following folks' Twitter feeds and G+ feeds, it sounds like it was a... Oh, hello there. Hi. Do you want to grab that?
Yes, let me check what's going on.
No problem.
Hello? Oh, come here. Good. This is my 7-year-old.
Hi. Well, here, Dylan, come here. Come here, Dylan. I'll introduce you to my 5-year-old. Come here, buddy. This is Matthew right here. And what's your daughter's name?
This is Anya.
Hi, Anya. This is Dylan. Say hi. They're right.
Hi.
Yeah. The kids are nearby.
Yeah.
All right. Is it okay if Daddy does a show for a little bit?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Back to the show. Okay. I'll talk to you after.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, that's adorable. Friday I brought Dylan to the office with me. So from what I was following on Twitter and on Google+, it looks like this year's Flock was maybe particularly successful. I got the sense, why am I seeing that? Why are people coming away from Flock being like, man, this was a great one?
Yeah, it was our biggest yet. I think it was somewhere, I don't know the official number, but somewhere around 250 people, which especially when you consider that they're all pretty active contributors, seemed very successful there. And it's just a lot of energy and a lot of good different sessions, and it all came very smoothly. I talked to some of the organizers behind the scenes, and they're always panicking about it falling apart. But from a user point of view, the organizers did an amazing job of holding that all together. So if you were just attending the conference, it looked like it was incredibly polished and
good
put together. So that's,
you know what? That's
great.
I think how it always goes. To be honest with you, I think that's pretty common. I guess what I was trying to get at is it excitement around the Fedora Next initiative? Is that what's got maybe people firing on all cylinders?
I hope so, because I think that, like I was saying, with the FUDCons, and Fedora kind of in general gotten into sort of a good groove of cranking out a new Fedora every 6 months without necessarily considering if that was the Fedora we should be making, just the one that we are in the well-honed habit of making.
Yeah.
And so Fedora Next is about, thinking about how we want to do this for the next 10 years of Fedora. And so this conference is kind of also focused on, figuring out what we're going to do next and how we're planning things. And so I think you're right. Those things together made for a nice conference. It's very energizing.
So why don't we transition into Fedora Next? Is Fedora Next essentially a response to an excuse me? Is Fedora Next a response to a mantra that we've heard a lot that Fedora lacks focus? What is Fedora? Who's the target for Fedora? I don't understand. It seems like it's for developers. It seems like it's for power users, but it seems like it's an experimental test branch of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. All of these things that people sort of echo over and over again. Is Next sort of a response to some of that?
So Fedora is a big, crazy project with a whole lot of different parts. And one of the sessions we actually drew on the whiteboard and tried to map out all of the different groups involved. And there's dozens and dozens of different people invested in different areas of the project and different groups of people, adding up to hundreds and thousands. And because everybody is involved for different reasons, I think that all those different unfocused things are somebody's focus, and so there's some legitimacy to that.
Right.
I think that's always going to be part of Fedora, and so, but a part of what we are doing with Fedora Next is choosing some marketing and strategic focus areas to try and give a quick default answer to that. And I think that as people get involved through that, they will find that these deeper things are still there. So we're not going to say we're going to shut down all those other crazy bits, which are important to Fedora, but we're kind of trying to give a more focused entry point.
Right. And sort of, in a way, also establish, this is geared for these markets. And the one obviously there's Fedora Cloud. There's a lot of different issues. The one that I thought maybe we could talk about briefly, because I don't know if I have a total conceptual understanding of what Fedora Workstation. What is the target of Fedora Workstation? Could you see like is it to be a like a true like desktop competitor, or is it more like just trying to create something that developers can be comfortable using? Like, what is the aim of the Workstation branch of Fedora Next?
Yeah, so again, we've got a lot of people with different views and different agendas, and I think we still definitely have a lot of people who are keeping the dream of the year of Linux on the desktop alive.
That's what I'm kind of getting at. Is that about that a little bit?
So I think that many of the people who are working on it really think that that can happen, and awesome, more power to them. And I hope it's true. I think that if we look at PC sales numbers, it's kind of there's been a decline, and your tablets are on the rise, but it's not the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I thought from a report I saw last month was interesting is that although PC sales overall are down, that ultrabooks and like fancy ones are actually up.
Right.
And I think that there's going to be an increased niche of content creators using laptops. So people who are consumers and just the average home user with Netflix and TV and whatever coming to them on their computer are probably going to shift away from using something that is really traditional PC. But people who are actually using the computers to make things are going to want to have computers for a good long time. And so actually I think that is an opportunity for Linux on the desktop. Now, with Fedora Workstation, we're actually trying to focus specifically on software developers who are using Fedora to build something other than Fedora, which is a big shift from what we've done in Fedora before. And I think some of the internal debate, there was a great session at Flock about how far we turn that dial towards just making this be really focused on software developers versus a broader audience.
Yeah, I could see how that'd have to be a balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, software developers are computer users too, so you can't just make it into just a work-only machine. So there's obviously also general computing use that
they're people too.
There too. Yeah, but I think this will be good, especially because a lot of design decisions, when you have that, this is for everybody in the world.
Right.
Go to make a design decision based on that. It's hard to weigh, which everybody did I really mean? Some people, this is more convenient this way. Some people prefer it this way. Which one do we choose between? Do we try to enable both at once? Do we end up with a middle ground no one's happy with?
There seems to be, that seems to be a problem that would affect really all the different flavors of Fedora, right? What is a cloud server to one person versus the other? But isn't that sort of, it's interesting. It seems to me the Fedora Next initiative itself sort of really got steam when we got serious about containerization under Linux. Like we got serious about Docker, we got serious about systemd and how to manage these kinds of things and CNAME and all these kinds of things that we can do now that sort of allow us to take a general purpose platform and hyper-focus it, but yet still make it manageable. And so I guess what my question to you in this regard is, was it the containerization and things like Docker that sort of gave you guys sort of the guts to say, all right, we're doing this? Or was that just a happy coincidence that such an enabling technology is coming around at the same time this initiative is being undertaken?
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence exactly, but I don't think it was based on it either. I think it's sort of a general trend that's sort of moving the whole industry in the same direction. And some of us looked at where that was going and saw that coming and said, we need to be ready to adapt to this.
Mm-hmm.
So especially when we started, we didn't really have specific containerization technology in mind, just knew that this is going to be the way things are going, and we need to have a more modular operating system.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big things that's part of Fedora Next that is not fully realized right now, or not very realized at all really, is this idea of having a small base OS and then modules that go on top of it. And obviously doing that in containers is great.
Yeah.
And some people have a vision of basically you just have this little core and then everything else is in Docker on top of it. Web server, all your operating services, even like your package manager would come in a Docker container and you add that container when you want to manage your packages and take it away when you're done.
Wow. Boy, I never even thought about it at that level. That is amazing, because then you almost bolt on a different package manager if you wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's we're quite a ways off from that.
Yeah.
But the idea of Fedora Next is that we need to be flexible enough so that we can experiment with these different approaches and see where they take us over the next
right
decade.
And allow the Fedora Cloud initiative to go off and really engineer in that area, and then perhaps those benefits can be pulled back into the Fedora Workstation project. Before we move off of Workstation, though, I wanted to talk to you about something that, as a longtime desktop Linux user, has always sort of perplexed me about the Fedora project. It seems like, for really, in a big way, the desktop Linux is very closely tied to Red Hat and Fedora through the work through the GNOME project, the GNOME Foundation, through Fedora itself, by just building incredible technologies in Fedora that the rest of the Linux community then adopt. Direction setting, but also Red Hat's market way itself can also help push certain issues in a certain direction. But then, at the same time, Red Hat and Fedora themselves both seem rather really unconcerned about the desktop. Yet they seem to hold so much influence there, even though there isn't really like one grand vision for the desktop. How do you address that sort of disconnect? Because it's almost like there's a big responsibility in the Fedora project's hands, but not necessarily on the Fedora side necessarily the passion to push that forward. Am I wrong? Is that a misread on my part, or do you see what I'm saying?
I'm not sure I do, but I'll try and.
Well, in a sense, it's sort of like there's not one true trailblazer for the Linux desktop that sets things forward. But if you could you assign weight and sort of credibility to any particular group, it would be Red Hat and the Fedora and all these folks that can really move important technologies forward. Yet at the same time, the desktop's very sort of tied to that project. But at the same time, the project doesn't seem to be particularly interested in desktop itself. Do you see the disconnect there?
Yeah, although I think, and I won't speculate about Red Hat and Red Hat's corporate things.
That's fine.
Not my area to do. Although I think part of that comes from the enterprise focus, where that's Red Hat really decided to go for the enterprise, and there certainly is desktop Linux in the enterprise and big customers using Red Hat Enterprise Linux-based desktops.
For sure, yeah.
But it's very different than the home market, different from the developer thing that we're looking at from Fedora. So. That some of the investment comes there, but I think I guess I don't agree with you about the lack of a focus on desktop in the areas in Fedora that do focus on desktop. So not only GNOME people are very passionate about that as driving that forward and driving innovation that way, and all our other alternate desktop developers, KDE group is does really good work as well.
And I guess I'm not saying there's not work there. In fact, I think what I'm getting at is I think that the split up with Fedora Workstation will sort of allow that drive to shine on its own, sort of break out from the rest of the crowd. Because right now I feel like it's been a muddled I guess that's my point, is I feel like it's been a bit of a muddled message where I'm not sure how important the future of the Linux desktop is to the Fedora project, but yet the future of the Fedora project seems awfully damn important to desktop Linux. That's my point. I think Fedora Workstation might sort of make that a little more clear. Do you think?
Yeah, I see where you're going there, and I think it's exactly right. As Fedora inherited originally a pretty big sysadmin user base from the Red Hat Linux back in the early days, and that user base has always been there. Both sysadmins using Fedora on their desktop, and despite what people will tell you about, no one uses Fedora for servers or production or other things, people really do.
Yeah.
And so there's always been this kind of disconnect between Fedora's kind of perception and focus as a desktop OS and the sysadmin base that is really there, and that comes out in, I think that over the years, we've almost driven off all but our crankiest sysadmins in some ways, and so it comes out in mailing list threads that about desktop focus. The desktop people want to do something, and then they're working on it, and then suddenly it comes in conflict with how the sysadmins are using their systems.
And there's pushback.
And then there's pushback and fighting, and nobody's happy because they're trying to make this one thing serve everybody.
Yeah.
So splitting it up so we've got the workstation can go for their focus, I think will help with that a lot. And we also have server and cloud where there can be a focus for sysadmins as well.
I am really, really excited. I think this is the most excited I've been about the future of the Fedora project for a long time. And it seems like a lot of really cool technologies are kind of all starting to come together. It's early days still, but the potential seems really strong. What would be what would be success to you? I mean, eventually it's not going to be called Fedora Next anymore because it's going to be what the Fedora project is. Where is that sort of like threshold where all of a sudden we're living this reality and it's been a successful implementation? What does that look like to you?
So I think that having these separate, we're calling them products, even though we're not selling them, having them recognized and having their own voices. When Fedora release comes out, having the different things reviewed, each on their independent merits, I think that'll be a large part of the success. I think we don't do very good metrics in Fedora, so I think starting to gather those metrics, and we want to see user curves going up for all of these things, and having an active user communities and continually growing developer community for those. That will be part of the success. When are we done question is an interesting one. I think I would like to really see that when somebody when the next Docker comes out, I would like to see that based on Fedora. I think some of those things are the
some of the next big innovations based on Fedora.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the things that we've done in Fedora so far are kind of inward focused. So I think that when we start to see things that where outward focused things are using Fedora by default, I think that's going to be a lot of the success.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's likely. I mean, I've always wondered why we don't see a lot of that, and I think you guys are addressing some of the core problems behind that. So we've talked a lot about Workstation. Is there anything regarding Fedora Cloud or Server? And there is two different things, Cloud and Server, right?
Yeah. So and the distinction that I think will become more clear, more important over the years of this is basically the pets versus cattle metaphor. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I don't know if
essentially, pets are something that you feed when they need it. You take care of them. You give them a lot of attention. And cattle are more utilitarian. Am I essentially right?
So I mean, you give your pets a name. You give your cattle a number. In the metaphor actually, I come from farming background. I'm here in the Midwest, but you actually don't treat your cattle as callously as the metaphor implies. The metaphor says if your cows are sick, you shoot them and get a new one. You don't really do that, but
I guess with a server, if it's busted, you could wipe it.
but generally you wipe it, but that's like kind of a last resort. You try and figure out what's wrong. Even if you do wipe it, with your server, if something's busted,
you want to know why.
You want to know why so that you don't recreate it. With the cattle kind of metaphor, you want to do that from a more macro level, where you're standing back a little bit and trying to figure out which of my cows are sick because of why. And
is it going to spread?
Yeah, so the Fedora Cloud is basically focused more and more on these scale out kind of things rather than scale up. And actually, if you look at some of the design work that a Fedora design team has done for logos for a cloud server workstation, I think there's those logos kind of show the out versus up thing very subtly and nicely with the lines. I would show it to you in a little paper if I had it printed out.
I'm looking at some of them right now.
Yeah. Okay. So you see the 3 lines for the server, kind of stacked up. They're like rack-mounted systems, and then the 3 lines for cloud that scale out.
Yes, that is very nice. I like that a lot. That is subtle,
but nice.
Yeah.
So I think that's basically the distinction there. So the server is focused around right now this idea of server roles. So they're using the Cockpit project as a front end or other script-based things, and where you basically say, I'm going to deploy this server as a database server, or deploy this as
so it has a specific role.
Server. Yeah, and then tweaking the individual configuration for that role. And so I think there'll be some APIs that you can hook into your Puppet or Ansible or whatever to configure that system further. Whereas I'm sorry, you were going to ask.
Well, I was just wondering, does Project Atomic fit in here anywhere too?
Yeah, so right now we are using Atomic pretty exclusively for the cloud thing. So Fedora Atomic is going to be based on Project Atomic. And in the cloud, we're going to have 2 choices. You can either have Fedora Cloud Base, which is traditional, like we've done Fedora Cloud Image before, RPM based. Here's your basically minimal install with Cloud.net, and then also Fedora Atomic, which will be based on Atomic and RPM OS tree and all these new technologies. And that's a lot because although Atomic can be very flexible technology, it could actually do the PETS model okay.
Yeah.
Current incarnation, it's really a lot easier for it to say this is the one thing it does. The one thing it does is run Docker containers.
That makes sense.
You customization in Docker containers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a nice fit for the
Yeah.
technology in its infancy to say this is the use case it's for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But it's enabled so that way it could be other things on the back end too.
Yeah. And so additionally, with the way we're doing it right now, we're focusing on cloud guests and nothing that runs on hardware. So Atomic is aimed eventually to be able to run Atomic base OS on hardware, not just in clouds. So you maybe treat it like cloud enabling technology, run all of your OpenStack nodes on top of Atomic. So that's something we're going to explore in the future. But for right now, it's guess that you're going to run in Amazon EC2, Google Compute Engine. I hope that's still on the table. We're working on that.
Yeah.
Rackspace Cloud, those kind of places.
Very nice.
Launch.
And while we're just on this server infrastructure topic, can you help me have a better understanding of how CentOS fits in now with the Fedora and these initiatives that Fedora is working on? Is there a wall between the two camps? Is there a cross-pollination? How does it work?
Yeah, we're still figuring all that out. There's not exactly a wall. There's a bigger wall between RHEL and CentOS, where it's a big distinction between the enterprise product and this rebuild. So they're pretty concerned about that wall. And I think we actually have, because they're community projects, more cooperation, direct cooperation with Fedora and CentOS.
Okay.
One of the things that is also in its infancy, but I think is interesting, there's a new CentOS SIG for a simple Linux server, SLS Linux, which if you remember Linux from 15 years ago, that was one of the early Linux distributions. So I think that's funny. But anyways, and sort of their goals were very aligned with what the Fedora server group is working on doing. And so there's some discussions about how to use that same technology for those different goals.
Okay.
And CentOS, like RHEL, is one of our important downstreams for Fedora, so they're a really big stakeholder, and we try to keep abreast of what they need and make sure we're doing a good job at serving those downstreams.
I just found it interesting that a lot of stuff has been happening in 2014. Yeah, 2014. It's been a really busy year for you guys, and so a day in the life for you are you traveling? So you are in mid-travel right now. Are you just going around all the time? Like, folks are going to be able to go meet you at LinuxCon on the 20th, right?
Yeah. Yes, and I'm giving a talk there about Fedora and Fedora Next. When I had originally pitched the talk, it was before I was the Fedora project leader, so I was going to do a little more of an overview of what's going on in different distributions. And now, not because I don't care about the other distributions, I just haven't had the time.
Yeah.
So it's going to end up a little more Fedora focused than I
well, you know what? That's what people want to hear. Well, Matthew, is there? I know there's so many things we could talk on, and there's probably a ton of things that I will think of after our chat. But is there anything specifically before we run that you wanted to touch on or address on the show?
I think we've covered a lot of the things pretty well. With the distinction between the different products is one of the big things that's going to come out. And Fedora 21 is going to come out this fall. It looks like it's, as Fedora always does, steadily creeping back as we do our traditional delay. But I think that it's going to be a kind of a launching point for some of these things. With Workstation, we're aiming for developer focus, but it's not going to look radically different. It's really going to be the beginning of these next steps.
Okay.
So it's going to be,
pretty familiar.
It's going to be pretty familiar, but we're also doing a lot of things different in the composing, and it's part of the reason for the last delay. So it's going to be familiar, but also a lot of changes. So I think it's a 0.0 release.
Well, I am really looking forward to checking it out. I've already got Fedora 21 loaded on the machine that we're on right here. Excellent. I've got it installed. It's dual booting right now because I couldn't wait. Like, I just had to jump in and just check it out. I'm also, in the last year, become a huge GNOME fan, so Fedora is, for GNOME users, just a great desktop right there to begin with. So I've been checking out the new package manager, DNF. That looks really awesome. I'm loving the GNOME software where you can go in there and check out all that stuff. So it's just really coming together. I think 21 is going to be the start of something really awesome for the Fedora project. So
Exactly. I agree. I'm glad to hear you think so too.
Well, Matthew, good luck at LinuxCon. Thanks so much for taking a few minutes out in between travels and working with the busy schedule. I really appreciate you coming on the Linux Action Show.
Glad to, and if anybody's in LinuxCon, I'll be glad to chat with you about anything you're interested in.
And we'll put links also to your contact info in the show notes if folks want to get a hold of you.
Yeah, cool. And you can contact me in basically any other way. I'm Matt DM on Freenode.
Okay.
And so
very good.
Very
good. And also maybe Noah, maybe you'll bump into Noah down at LinuxCon. He's going to be there doing interviews for us. So maybe you guys can stop and chat. That'll be really cool.
Cool.
And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. But you know, Matt.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe we'd read some emails before we get out.
Let's check it out.
All right, our first email comes in from TechCog. And TechCog says, hey, Chris and Matt, I watch the show all the time. Appreciate the work. My wife and I are living in the past, and we still have some old candy bar Palm phones. Oh, wow. We're planning on upgrading. I'm currently have an older Samsung Galaxy Mini that is rooted, and the only thing I can get to work on it without using Google is the address book. We value our privacy. In anticipation of new phones, I've purchased the following. A NUC kit, which has the i3 processor with an HDMI out, SSD. It's got USB 3.0 and an infrared sensor. It's got a solid-state drive at 120 gigabytes capacity. He put 8 gigabytes of memory in this thing, okay?
Oh, wow.
i3, 8 gigs of memory, 120 gigabyte SSD. That's your stats. i3 NUC. Our initial plan is to create a server and use OwnCloud, and later possibly BitTorrent Sync and maybe Plex, depending on how things work out. I've been rehashing older last episodes to try and get a handle on maybe what I should be doing. I've recently watched the following episodes: OwnCloud 7 interview, Core OS, the future of servers, Arch Home Server Challenge, and Intel NUC review. In light of the fact that the NUC I have purchased and the Core i3 with only 8 gigabytes of RAM, and also the fact that my wife and I are security conscious, I wanted to ask you about your advice on what we should be doing server-wise. I like the concept of Core OS, but I think it may be more applicable to a large-scale installation with more horsepower. I have little experience with Arch, but I like the idea of containerization for security's sake. What is your recommendation for a small server, like things that will be exposed to the interwebs? Also, I have DDWRT on my router, so that'll be his firewall.
Right.
Is it going to be possible we would implement something like port knocking or some scheme for added security? Thanks for the help, Tech Cow.
Good question.
So, Matt, should we start with? I'm going to start with Core OS. Don't use Core OS.
Yeah, it sounds like it'd be overkill. I would
way
think.
overkill for a NUC. I would say either you really kind of probably have three choices. Ubuntu 14.04 is a serious consideration for a home server because things like you mentioned OwnCloud. The easiest OwnCloud 7 install so far for me has been on Ubuntu. My DigitalOcean droplet that I spun up that's running my own Cloud 7 instance is Ubuntu 14.04.
Oh, there you go.
Plus, you get the LTS, right? So it's not like it's going to be a big inconvenience, right? So there's some serious
And you're not trying to be bleeding edge. You just want it to work.
Yeah. However, since doing that install, I found a really easy guide to get it working on Arch too. So you combine Arch with Docker, you might be onto something. Here's where I like Arch. I like Arch for two pieces of software that you mentioned, Plex and BitTorrent Sync.
Yeah.
Only because I've been bitten in the ass by PPAs for Plex that the people just abandoned, and now I have a Plex install that's out of date, and I don't want to redo the whole machine. I don't want to have to uninstall and reinstall, and I just have a dead PPA. I'm screwed. Sorry, I'm out of luck. Go F yourself, Chris. Thanks for trying. But if it was an Arch AUR submission, it would be a non-issue. So that's nice. And now that OwnCloud 7 has a pretty straightforward installation on Arch, that's worth considering. But I would go either Arch, CentOS, or Ubuntu 14.04 on your NUC.
Yeah.
8 gigs of RAM is going to be fine. Your biggest problem is going to be the 120 gigabytes. Once you start putting files up there for syncing, pictures, videos, unless you have a network-attached storage and do like an NFS mount, that 120 gigs is going to be your biggest limiting factor.
Yeah, I would say you're going to almost have to go some sort of attached storage at that point.
Like a Synology or a FreeNAS, something like that.
You'll be happy you did.
We've reviewed Plex on this show, right? Because you should watch the Plex review.
Yeah,
too.
I'm pretty sure we have.
And there's an episode where we talk about Sickbeard and Couch Potato and Sab NZB. That'd be worth watching too.
Yes. Addresses privacy concerns and whatnot.
Yeah, and then in a more recent episode, we also talked about playing Netflix natively under Linux. That might be a good episode for you to catch as well, TechCog. Let us know how it goes, and if you get stuck in between episodes, you can also hit up linuxactionshow.reddit.com with any questions. I am also in sort of the early days of planning the rebuild for my home server because I set up all the servers here at the studio, and I'm like, okay, I'm all done here. Now I need to go back to the house and rebuild my server there.
Oh, God.
And I have not decided yet Ubuntu 14.04 Arch. I am leaning Arch.
Oh, you'll go Arch. I already know. Yeah. if the word Plex appears in it or pretty much anything at all, you're going to use it.
I like having new BitTorrent Sync and Plex. That is very nice. And, it's not that you can't get that right today on Ubuntu, but I also, on a NUC, I think these NUCs have the potential to just run forever because there's
they do.
pretty much nothing in the way of moving parts in them except for one fan. And you can replace that one fan if it ever dies. And otherwise it's all solid state. The drive is solid, everything's solid, and it could potentially run for 5-10 years. I don't want to have to reload.
Yeah, I'm like racking my brain because I'm running it on Solid X right now with Plex.
That's
and I'm
another
trying
way.
to remember.
Debian would be another good way to go.
So that might be a good way to.
Debian. So the only reason why I didn't mention Debian when I mentioned the distros is because I haven't seen a guide for installing OwnCloud 7 on Debian. Right. I'm sure they exist. I'm sure they do. So just pick a distro you like.
They do, but it's like to get it to work, it's like 3 of them combined. It's kind of a pain.
Yeah. See, with the 1404, it's really straightforward. And I read through the guide on Arch, and now it's like install the package, do this, do that, you're done. It's crazy easy.
Yeah.
All right, Herbert wrote in with the last email of the day. He says, hey, Matt and Chris, as you probably know, Debian is celebrating his 21st birthday today. You know what? That's right. I forgot to mention that. Congratulations, Debian.
And the value of this is negative.
No,
not at all.
It's very positive, Richard. It's very positive. So happy birthday, Debian. You may not know, but today was insane inflatable 5K marathon day in Atlantic City, New Jersey.
Okay.
So I thought, why not combine all of it together and run a marathon wearing my last T-shirt with happy birthday balloons for Linux attached to my back.
That's awesome. What a way to do it, too. That's great.
So we have the, if you're listening to the audio version, we have the photo album in the show notes. There is his picture right
so
there.
Cool.
There's him wearing his last shirt. That's his happy birthday balloon. See if we jump forward here a little bit. There's
nice.
It's got the GNU Linux little information about Debian's birthday on there.
That's cool.
Right by the beer garden too. Well placed.
Yes, strategic even.
Let's see here. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, it's got some Debian there. You got some.
That's
very,
pro.
very cool.
That's pro.
That's actually really cool.
Very nice. We'll have the album linked in the show notes. Thanks, Herbert, for sending that, and that made me smile last night when I saw it.
That was very cool.
Hey, Matt, if people wanted to find a little more of Matt Hartley, if they needed more Matt in their life, where would they go? Maybe in the visual context.
In the visual context, you can go to the old YouTubers. Or you can go Datamation.
Oh, yeah, YouTubers. No, I meant to click on YouTubers.
Yeah, okay,
go ahead. Go ahead.
You want to go YouTubers, you can go, go Geek in the Gamer.
Why is he shooting wheels out of his crotch? I mean, that's like the $10,000 question, right?
I don't know. Wouldn't that hurt?
Yeah. Well, I guess, I'll tell you, it's probably easier to do that than shoot wheels out of your ass.
So I've been told.
I love how you guys do that.
Oh, man. Yeah, so, we definitely try and do these. We're trying to get back to weekly. We're getting them back out.
Yeah.
Worth checking out. Geek in the Gamer. Otherwise, links in the show notes.
Yeah,
and, of course, you can also find me on Datamation. And the latest article is kind of just a quick examination of benefits and challenges and being realistic about them and not drinking our own Kool-Aid, something that the community does frequently.
Hey-oh.
So, yeah.
Benefits and clear challenges of Linux. I like that, Matt. That's good. I like keeping it real.
Yeah, keep it real.
That's why you should join us live, because if there's any one place we keep it real, maybe a little too real, is the live stream. Join us at jblive.tv over on Sundays, 10 a.m. Pacifics. If you go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar, we have robots. They literally sit idle 24/7, costing me money, but I pay them in Bitcoins, to calculate that time for you. So please, it's a flat rate. Just go there, jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. Find out when our live shows are. Participate in our chat room. Help us name the shows. And also yell at us during segment breaks.
Absolutely.
Things like that. And you can also email us. Go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click the contact link, and choose Linux Action Show from the drop-down. Or, if you really want to be seen, linuxactionshow.reddit.com. Turns out one of the best places for Linux users on the internet, podcast or not, linuxactionshow.reddit.com.
That's right.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. We'll see you right back here next week.
Bye.
Yeah,
Felt like
Popey.
a kernel panic.
Actually, I'm really glad. I hope Popey is tuning in right now, because this entire episode is actually dedicated to him.
Absolutely.
And really, it's because of Popey that we've found our inspiration to do this show. And so what we wanted
love
to do,
you, Popey. We're just giving you credit.
what we wanted to do was focus in on Popey for a minute and sort of celebrate Popey being part of our community. And by doing so, we thought we'd watch him chase a chicken.
Wow.
Yeah! Go, Pope!
Get it. Get it. Get that chicken.
That was good.
At least Fab
That was a good moment. I liked that. That
was very cool.
Yeah.
You know, hey, if you can't choke it, catch it. So hey.
Oh, I know, Josh. Integros. Josh thinks I talk about Integros too much, but you know what?
What about Integros?
Hey, you know, Josh, I was you. I was all like, and here's the truth about me is, for both Matt and I, it's on record. We were like, Arch, the AUR. You guys think we're on record being jackasses. We are on record, and let me tell you, I'm just saying, I was that guy. I was like, Ubuntu.
Well, and to be fair, I actually use WatchOS on a netbook. I love it. And I
Looking
also
for great community.
Yes, I am.
And I also use something that's about to be shot out in the field on my other box because screw my life. Because whatever. Anyway, there'll be more on that later. But anyway, something I'm bitter about. So anyway.
That just creeped in here. All of a sudden, boom.
Yeah, I'm just saying. But anyway, the point being is I use a variety of distros.
And hey, I don't want anybody to worry. We still are equipped with the HTML5 cam, so we can check in with the HTML5 cam as needed. So we've got that as well. Nobody worry. We've still got HTML5.